Hi everyone, I'm Dan from JazzComposersPresent.com, an online space where composers, musicians, and listeners come together to celebrate the music we love. I'm joined today by Fabia Mantwill, Berlin-based composer, arranger, saxophonist, and vocalist. Fabia is here to show us how to translate a conceptual idea into music.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I will talk about a few conceptual choices and their effects on a composition, looking at one of my pieces called Trio.logy. So just to give you a brief insight about the story of the song, it's inspired by a trip I did to Ghana in 2015, where I was sitting at the beach in a cute little village in Winneba, and I noticed three friends, I guess in their teens, teasing each other, laughing, having a good time together. I really enjoyed watching them and figured that could be a cool inspiration to start off a new piece. So the first thing I did was to set our conceptual musical frame. So that means I think about a general vibe or message of the piece. For Trio.logy, I wanted it to be kind of cheeky and waggish and fun, and also having kind of a dancey vibe, a dancing character of the piece. Conceptually, my idea was to work with the number 3 as the center of my piece, referring to those 3 friends. So how did I put that into practice? Let's have a look at the reduction of the score. When I'm composing, I like thinking in different layers. So horizontally, I chose to work with a 3-bar cycle, which keeps repeating almost throughout the whole composition. And vertically, I chose 3 main polyphonic lines complementing each other. Each melody is played by a group of 3 different instruments. And I did give them a certain identity and role in the piece, though they are all still equally important. So the first line is a line which I figured I wanted to balance in the center. This one is mostly played by tenor sax, trombone, and trumpets with or without harmon. The second line is more like bubbly and light and flying on top of the whole game. This is played by flute, guitar, and marimba. And the third line is more sort of a rooted and grounded line. Maybe we could consider it as a bass line. And this one is played by baritone sax, bass trombone, and double bass. So let's dive right into the spot where you can hear all the 3 lines at once. Here comes starting at bar 30. So we have set our frame now. Let's have a look at the choice of form. I wanted to make a point of being in the observing role rather than the interacting one. So I felt as if I was zooming into the moment and zooming out again. That's why I chose to write a musical fade in and fade out and try somewhat of a symmetrical approach on the form. To get the idea, it would certainly be helpful to listen to the whole piece at once. You might want to do that on your own. But for now, let's listen to the beginning of the piece and how I build it up and introduce the different melodies. The music starts in bar 5. Might have figured in the end, I started introducing the second line, but just in little parts. And that leads me to another really powerful parameter, which I call patience and suspension. I could summarize it with the term, be brave to save. which basically means don't use all your sparks right in the beginning and be patient to save them for later. In Trio.logy, it takes almost 2 minutes before any of the string players, except the double bass, obviously, are coming in. And that way I can really give a dynamic push to the piece. And you might have noticed that when we listened to the first sound example. An important note at that point, work with the material that you already have, because it does give reference, clarity, and a lot of context right away. That's what I did writing the backings of the solo, which, by the way, is also the only tutti moment of the whole piece. So we will start listening now to the last part of the solo, going into the backings in bar 72. Last, let's talk about density and layering. So having 3 polyphonic, quite busy lines at the same time requires a lot of space for each of them to shine. That's why I decided to hardly write any additional changes. So the harmonic language and character mostly results of the interaction of those melody lines with each other. Playing or talking about density, maybe you want to create density by overloading on purpose to create chaos. Or the opposite, you can also thin it out and create space and transparency. In my piece, there's parts where you can probably not really identify each line on its own, but in the complementary bigger picture, they become one dense sound. And also a little side note here, if you work with a kind of a repetitive concept, make sure to vary it. You can reduce, you can add colors, you can change registers, instrumentation, or play around with special effects, techniques, which, for instance, I did in the strings towards the end of the piece because I wanted to create that kind of 70s disco vibe. So here we go. For the last listening part, we start in bar 91. There's many more aspects to look at, but what it's all about is squeeze the lemon. So find your inspiration, verbalize and explore your idea, and decide on the possibilities to incorporate that musically and or conceptually in your piece. For that, I put together a little list with keywords that might be helpful for you as a guideline to hold on to. So the first thing is give your composition a frame. This can be style, it can be genre, an atmosphere, a certain emotion, or a general vibe. Then think about the form. I personally like to think about it as a path and consider its shape and think about suspension, what I mentioned earlier. And then what is your red thread? What is your key element? Like, try to verbalize your inspiration and clear musical concept. Where are you going with your composition? Set an overall timbre, which is more detailed than just framing your piece. Then think about transparency and density. When you think about layers, I like to mention that I think it's very powerful to imagine a composition in a 3D context. So think about the foreground, the middle ground, the background. Think about it vertically or horizontally. There's lots of different layers you can explore. Then the next question would be, who carries the responsibility for the melody or melodies? Of course, harmonic structure and direction is really important, and specific colors in your sonic spectrum. So that's the guideline, that's the keywords that you can kind of hold on to while writing. And yeah, I hope you got some values from this mini lesson, and thank you all for watching. Feel free to reach out to me for further questions, or if you want to listen to Trio.logy It's on my latest orchestra album, EM.PERIENCE.
Thanks for watching today's mini lesson. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Drop any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos down below. To watch our full-length events and participate in live Q&As with our presenting artists, head to jazzcomposerspresent.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.